So I suppose the new rule in the NFL is that if you kneel for the national anthem and a national controversy then engulfs you, you get $1 million contracts from Nike, and the NFL definitely attempts for years on end to get you back into the league despite the fact that you stink so much that you were benched for the immortal Blaine Gabbert. That, of course, is the story of Colin Kaepernick, who became rich, even richer than he was, and more famous than he was after going to the Super Bowl because he knelt for the national anthem. And despite all of the attempts to paint Colin Kaepernick as a victim, precisely the opposite is true. Colin Kaepernick was touted as a hero by large swaths in the mainstream media. He was put on the cover of magazines because he was kneeling for the national anthem, supposedly because Black Americans like Colin Kaepernick, raised in a white household that adopted him, were victims of the white supremacist system. Now, fast forward a few years, and the hot controversy of the day in the NFL is a kicker by the name of Harrison Butker. He is a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, and there are now calls for him to be removed from the Chiefs roster for the upcoming NFL season from some radical left fans and their allies. Why? Well, because he is a Catholic, and he gave a 20-minute commencement speech at Benedictine College, which is Catholic, in which he talked about Catholicism. That's all this is. And he said things that are very traditional in terms of men, in terms of women, in terms of Catholic theology. And this is apparently absolutely outrageous. So what did Harrison Butker say that was so wildly offensive that people now know his name? And he's a kicker. Nobody knew his name 5 seconds ago. It's not like Kaepernick, who was very famous. Harrison Butker, unless you were a big fan of football, you really had no idea who this dude is until 5 minutes ago. But now he's become a national name because the media have decided he is the root of all evil. Why? Because he's just saying the same stuff that Catholics have been saying for legitimately 2,000 years. And he said it at a Catholic college. So let's go to what Harrison Butker said that has now led all of this off. Because again, this is indicative. This controversy is indicative of the real social issues gap lying between left and right that is undergirding so much of our ugly politics these days. You have a left that has embraced transgenderism as an absolute virtue, and a right that is saying things like, hey, men and women exist and are different. And that is apparently a really bad thing. Again, when Joe Biden wonders why it is that the Rust Belt has turned against him, why it is that rural Americans don't like Joe Biden, it actually has less to do with economics than it does with cultural politics. Because let's be real about this. What Harrison Butker says here is believed and is agreed with by a huge swath of Americans, Catholic and non-Catholic alike. So here's Harrison Butker, again, speaking as a Catholic at a Catholic college, Benedictine College, about masculinity.
It is only in the past few years that I have grown in courage to speak more boldly and directly, because as I mentioned earlier, I have leaned into my vocation as a husband and father, and as a man. To the gentleman here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the U.S., and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy, but if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better.
Okay, 5 seconds ago, this was wildly uncontroversial. Now, of course, to suggest that men have something special to present to the world is considered controversial. And this was contrasted with his statement about being feminine and what he says about female choices. We'll get to more on this in just a moment. First, I've been traveling quite a bit lately. That brings me to talk about a thing I hate. Airports. Yes. My team and I are unfortunately at the mercy of the airport. We travel all over the world. There's a lot of craziness going on. We don't know who we're traveling with, who might be listening in on our internet connection, whether the public Wi-Fi has security, whether local government is censoring our internet. So I think about privacy and security a lot when I travel, which brings me to a thing I like, ExpressVPN. A VPN provider that proves very useful to me while I'm traveling for a couple of reasons. First, it reroutes my internet connection to stop third parties like Wi-Fi admins and government agencies from spying on me, and it encrypts 100% of my traffic, protecting my private data, like bank logins and credit cards, from Wi-Fi hackers. ExpressVPN is the only VPN provider I trust and recommend. Plus, it's really easy to use. You just tap one button to connect on any device. So, if you want to get serious about online security, sign up right now at expressvpn.com/Ben. You'll receive 3 months absolutely free. That's expressvpn.com/Ben, expressvpn.com/Ben, to get started. Here is what he had to say. Again, this is very traditional, and I agree with it. Here he is talking about the role of females in society at large and what brings female happiness.
Because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
Why in the world is that controversial? He's not saying don't have a career. He's saying the most important thing you will do in your life is be a wife and be a mom if you're a woman. By the way, the most important thing that I do in my life is be a father and a provider and a protector to my family. This was, again, in no way controversial 5 seconds ago, but it was this particular statement that led to 1,000 think pieces about how terrible all of this is. How dare he suggest that perhaps women find fulfillment in being married and having children? Okay, I can testify to this in my own life. My wife, of course, very famously a doctor, went to UCLA Medical School, brilliant woman. Also, the place where she easily finds the most fulfillment, and she'll tell you this, bar none, without a doubt, being a mom, being a wife. Those are the places where she finds the most fulfillment, without a doubt. And again, the lie that women can forego being a wife and a mother and find the same levels of happiness on a general level. Again, not true for every individual, but on a general level, the idea that women should forego the great joy of life in being a wife and being a mom. By the way, the parallel lie for men is that they should forego the great joy in life of being a father and a husband and a protector and a provider. Those lies have led to the dissolution of society. And when he speaks movingly about his wife, here are your choices, okay? Your choices are Harrison Butker, who speaks movingly about meeting his wife, marrying her, about having kids with her. And that's one choice. And the other choice is half the rest of the NFL who are knocking up women and abandoning their children. The NFL has nothing to say about that. Nothing. The NFL is completely silent about players like Antonio Cromartie, who has fathered half the country at this point. That's apparently there's no comment necessary there. The NFL never has comment when players are arrested for a variety of crimes, including crimes against women. But if Harrison Butker says this thing, the NFL comes out and condemns him. So the NFL put out a statement saying, quote, Harrison Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger. What exactly? Have they ever issued a statement like this before? I don't recall a lot of statements from the NFL about this sort of stuff. Now, the other thing that he said that, of course, is very controversial is he suggested that there is a sin, and it is called pride. And that sin that is called pride is connected, in fact, with Pride Month. That if you are proud of things that Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism, virtually every major religion considers sinful, if you're proud of that, that is not, in fact, a good thing. And this, of course, is offensive to the social left. He wasn't supposed to say anything remotely like that. So, in the middle of the speech, he said, quote, Benedictine has gone from just another liberal arts school with nothing to set it apart to a thriving beacon of light. I'm certain the reporters at the AP could not have imagined that their attempt to rebuke and embarrass places and people, like those here at Benedictine, wouldn't be met with anger, but instead met with excitement and pride, not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify him. Again, this is just classic Catholic theology at a Catholic university. And yet apparently, again, there is a religion. The religion of secularism is incredibly strong and incredibly virile and is absolutely willing to stomp on anyone who gets in its way. And of course, Harrison Butker he had the gall, the temerity to point out that top-level politicians in the United States, including the President of the United States, call themselves Catholic while constantly contravening Catholic doctrine. Which again, I don't understand why even this is controversial. I say all the time on this show with regard to Judaism, Judaism has certain precepts. There are very public people who proclaim that they are Jewish only to attack Judaism or Jews, people like Bernie Sanders. That is certainly true about Catholics as well. When it comes to Joe Biden proclaiming his ardent Catholicism at the same time that he backs every single doctrine that runs directly in the face of Catholicism, I mean, that doesn't seem like amazing Catholic behavior to me. So a Catholic pointing that out at a Catholic college, why is that even controversial? I am confused. Here is Harrison Butker.
Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice.
100% correct. So, of course, the entire social left comes out for Harrison Butker's dismissal. Lisa Guerrero, a former NFL sideline reporter, now an investigative journalist for Inside Edition, tweeted, "Hey, NFL, if you want to continue to grow your female fan base and any other marginalized group, straight white men are already watching your product, come get your boy." Now, I should point out at this point, again, Harrison Butker was saying this at a graduation at a Catholic college. Another differentiating point from Colin Kaepernick, who literally hijacked TV broadcasts of the NFL in order to politically protest the American flag. So even if you were going to call for consequences on Kaepernick from the NFL, he was doing it on the NFL field before the game as part of the actual NFL broadcast. Harrison Butker said a thing far away from the NFL field at a Catholic college as a Catholic, and people are still calling for him to be punished by the NFL. If we're going to start getting into off-field activities not punished by the NFL, that's a long list, as it turns out. Filmmaker Michael McWhorter, who has about 6 million TikTok followers, said, quote, "There's nothing wrong with his wife being a homemaker. Homemaker's wonderful. That's not the point. The point is he seems to be acting as if you should be ashamed if you don't want to be a homemaker. Or, quote, I don't know what you really want to do is stay home and have babies." That's not what he's saying. He's not saying that you should be ashamed not to be a homemaker. He is saying that the most fulfilling thing a woman will do in her life, typically speaking, is be a wife and be a mother. I don't even understand why that is. Again, these things are not controversial in a healthy, functioning society. The most fulfilling thing I do in my life as a relatively famous person who speaks every day on things that matter to me, that pales in comparison in my roles to my roles as a father and as a husband. It is not close. And that's true for every functioning human being, or should be true for every functioning human being. And a society that has decided to dismiss all of that is a society that is bound to fail. That's why these things matter. The reason these things matter is because there is a part of society that is suggesting the converse of what Harrison Butker is saying. Not that he's making a point that I disagree with for myself, but in general, it'd be good for society to have more functioning families. Not that there are social duties that we owe to one another and moral standards we ought to uphold. No, it's that Harrison Butker is so bad he must be punished for all of this. And again, this is running up directly against a social left, which is dominant in the media and now in politics as well. We'll get to more on this in a moment. You know what's dumb? Racing one of the most famous Disney characters of all time, Tinkerbell. Yeah, they're doing that at Disney World. You know what else is dumb? Not having life insurance. Tinkerbell should have had life insurance. Getting life insurance will give you peace of mind, knowing that if something were to happen to you, your family could cover expenses while getting back on their feet. Policy Genius has licensed award-winning agents and technology that make it easy to compare life insurance quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find that lowest price. Their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you through the process. Even if you already have a life insurance policy through work, it might not offer enough protection for your family's needs. It might not follow you if you leave your job. It's really important to think about what happens to your family in case, God forbid you plot. This is why you should have life insurance. Policy Genius makes it happen for you. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies starting at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid those unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius works for you, not the insurance companies, which means they don't have incentive to recommend one insurer over another. Save time, save money, provide your family that financial safety net using Policy Genius. Head over to policygenius.com/Shapiro. Get your free life insurance quotes. See how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. How it's more controversial, for example, for Harrison Butker to say all of this stuff than it is for example, the Biden administration to intensify regulations on Title IX that now mandate the use of female bathrooms by boys. One of these is a speech saying Catholic things at a Catholic university. The other is the President of the United States, a purported Catholic, pressing forward regulations that mandate the obliteration of gender in the United States. The new federal rules, according to ABC News, officially add, quote, gender identity to the list of protections from sex-based discrimination for the first time. Title IX prohibits discrimination based on sex at any institution that receives federal funding. U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona put out an announcement saying, quote, for more than 50 years, Title IX has promised an equal opportunity to learn and thrive in our nation's schools, free from sex discrimination. These final regulations build on the legacy of Title IX by clarifying all our nation's students can access schools that are safe, welcoming, and respect their rights. Schools could violate Title X if a transgender person is not allowed to use the bathroom aligned with their gender identity or if they are not referred to by their chosen pronoun. Do you understand what that means? That means that any school that is bound by Title IX, if a boy comes into the classroom and says, I am a girl, the school is now bound by federal law to treat that boy as though he is a girl. And somehow that is less controversial to our mainstream media than the idea that, you know, the most important role you're going to play in your life in your life as a wife, as a mother, if you're a woman, as a father and as a husband, as a protector, as a provider, if you're a man. That's the fundamental underlying cultural conflict in the country. It is not about economics. And there's been this attempt to suggest that what the real battle is, it's an economic that's a really Marxist materialist way of looking at how people make decisions in their voting lives and in their politics. The real answer to why you've got this huge yawning gap that has emerged in the United States is a culture gap. It is a culture gap between the values of San Francisco and New York, culturally speaking, and the values of like Youngstown, Ohio. That is the massive culture gap. It is a massive culture gap between people who believe, generally speaking, like Harrison Butker, and people who generally believe like Joe Biden's minions. That is the yawning culture gap. And guess what? Joe Biden is in the minority on these positions. It turns out that most Americans don't really care what you do in the privacy of your own home. At least they don't want the government involved in that sort of stuff. With that said, they still do believe in the fundamental building blocks of a healthy society. I mean, Xavier Becerra, who's the Health and Human Services Secretary, he literally came out yesterday and said that the federal government would withhold funding from any religious institution that doesn't do sex change operations on kids. How is that somehow in our society less controversial than Harrison Butker saying things that are just in line with traditional biblical values?
You've put out this guidance and doctors do need to know.
Yes.
What are you going to do if they refuse to provide this care?
A doctor, if that doctor has religious objections, that doctor under these rules is not required to offer the care.
Okay, so you're committing here today that you will not withhold federal funding.
Doctors don't get federal funding, ma'am.
But the hospitals do.
Okay, so now talk to me about the hospital.
Are you saying that the...
Don't confuse the two.
Okay.
A doctor's not a hospital.
But the doctors are working in these hospitals. Are you going to say today, are you committing that you will not withhold federal funding from those healthcare facilities?
If a healthcare facility is violating the law and not providing the service they're required to, they are not entitled to the resources.
So any hospital, a Catholic hospital, for example, that says we are not going to trans the children, that hospital now is at risk of losing any federal funding at all, which is insane. That is the yawning cultural gap. That is the thing. The single most important quote of the last 30 years in American politics is the Barack Obama 2008 quote that the people of the United States who were not voting for him were clinging to God and guns and religion. This is what Democrats, top-level Democrats, elite Democrats believe. It's the same thing that Nancy Pelosi said the other day at Oxford Union when she suggested that she has all the proper policy prescriptions, but they're being impeded by all these weird people who believe in things like God, which is an amazing thing for a supposedly religious Catholic like Nancy Pelosi, who clearly is not particularly religious, considering she backs every violation of Catholic doctrine you can find, to say. That's an amazing thing to say. So good for Harrison Butker. And again, the controversy surrounding Harrison Butker is just a beautiful example of the culture gap that has emerged in our society. Because it used to be, even when I was growing up, this stuff was uncontroversial, wildly uncontroversial. It is not a contradiction to say that a woman should have every ability and right to work if she wants to work in any job for which she is qualified. And also the most fulfilling thing she's going to do in life is be a wife and be a mom. Those are not contradictory at all. And it is not contradictory at all to suggest that America ought to be a tolerant and diverse country that retains moral standards with regard to personal conduct, because that is important to a functioning society. The fact that you have honestly, Harrison Butker versus Colin Kaepernick is a pretty good indicator of right versus left in the country right now. I think more people agree with Harrison Butker than agree with Colin Kaepernick. Not in the media, however. We'll get to more on this in just 1 second. First, one thing is very important to remember. Vegetables are terrible, so I don't like to eat them. So I make up for my vegetable deficiencies by taking Balance of Nature fruits and veggies. Balance of Nature fruits and veggies is the most convenient way to ensure you get your daily intake of fruits and veggies. Balance of Nature uses an advanced cold vacuum process that encapsulates fruits and veggies into whole food supplements without sacrificing those natural antioxidants. The capsules are completely void of additives, fillers, extracts, synthetics, pesticides, or added sugar. The only thing in those Balance of Nature fruit and veggie capsules are, like fruits and veggies. You need nutrients to function at your best every day. Balance of Nature helps you do just that. And by the way, Balance of Nature is kosher, which means that I can open up those capsules, put them in the proteins, smoothies, and be as buff as I want to be. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Shapiro, get 35% off your first set of fruits and veggies, plus an additional $10 off every additional set that you buy. That is balanceofnature.com, promo code Shapiro. Again, balanceofnature.com, promo code Shapiro. Get the veggies without the headache of eating veggies. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Shapiro. In order to sell all this stuff, what you have to do is you have to start changing the definition of words, which is what the left has been doing literally my entire lifetime. They take words and then they just gut the words and wear the words around like Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. And they do this with institutions all the time. So they'll use the institution of science. They'll rip out its guts. They'll say that we no longer need falsifiability or scientific evidence. We'll just say a thing, pretend it's to science, and then you have to believe it. You've seen them do this with the term marriage. Marriage used to mean a thing. It used to mean man, woman, producing children was the goal. It meant that thing for literally thousands of years. And then the left gutted it. So now it means any group of people, I'm not going to say two, because the reality is the left has no boundaries on this. Any group of people who quote unquote love each other. No boundaries whatsoever. Okay, that is a fundamental gutting of the term marriage. You want to call it something else, call it something else. But it is a gutting of the term marriage and then a hijacking of it. And now you see that with beauty. So my friend Jordan Peterson once got himself banned from Twitter under the old regime of Jack Dorsey for mentioning that gutting the term beauty is a bad thing. That when we have conversations with one another, we generally know what we mean when we use particular words. And when it comes to things like human beauty, they're actually fairly objective metrics of what people think is a beautiful face. It tends to be symmetrical faces with certain kinds of features. But the left has decided, like everything else, to gut the term beauty. So this is what they are doing at Sports Illustrated. So Sports Illustrated has decided that the swimsuit edition, again, not something that I care for. I was a Sports Illustrated subscriber from probably the time I was 10 to maybe the time I was, in my mid-20s, maybe. And I ended up canceling my subscription specifically because they put Caitlyn Jenner on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And I was like, what the hell does this have to do with sports? Bruce Jenner has not been relevant in sports since literally before I was born. I've told that story before. But even when I was a subscriber to Sports Illustrated, I was one of the guys who actually called up Sports Illustrated and said, I don't want the swimsuit edition. Please send me an extra, just add on to the length of my subscription so I get an actual sports magazine. But the swimsuit edition was always the supposed apotheosis of female beauty. It was always beautiful women in bathing suits or body paint. Right? That's always what it was. And then over the past few years, as part of the attempt to gut words of all meaning, Sports Illustrated has decided they are going to now trot out a bunch of people who are not only not beautiful, some of them are not even women. So in 2021, they featured a transgender person named Lena Bloom, because that's what dudes are looking for. Then in 2022, they featured an overweight model named Yumi Nu, a large-bodied person, because that, again, is what dudes are looking for. Then in 2023, they featured Kim Petras, another man who has been treated surgically to look more female, stereotypically female. And now they are featuring Gayle King on the cover of Swimsuit, Sports Illustrated. I can't imagine why this company went bankrupt. It makes no sense to me. Gayle King is 69 years old. Now, I suppose that as an aging brand, they're looking for that AARP membership or something. They just want the crossover with the AARP magazine. But of course, this has nothing to do with the standards of beauty. She can be beautiful for a 69-year-old and also not be objectively beautiful in the sense that you would want to see her on the cover of a swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. Again, I don't have a dog in the swimsuit edition fight. I do have a dog in the redefinition of words fight. I do have a dog in the you don't get to redefine words to mean things they clearly don't mean and then yell at people when they point it out, which is the game that the left is playing. In the same way that Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi declare themselves Catholic while completely destroying every aspect of Catholicism, Sports Illustrated is now declaring people beautiful while completely ignoring the definition, classically, of beauty. Here is Gayle King talking about the importance of her Sports Illustrated swimsuit shoot here.
Never in a million years thought I would be standing here in a bathing suit or Sports
Well, yeah, no one
Illustrated,
else, yeah.
which says to me that sometimes people can dream, God can dream, the universe can dream.
The universe can't dream. It's not sentient.
Never think for yourself. I would have never thought this was possible.
Right, because it's
This was
stupid.
Nowhere on my bucket
Right, because it's
list.
dumb.
So I'm thinking maybe it was a dream that I didn't even know I wanted.
Right, 'cause
now
it's
that
stupid.
I'm here, I want it bad.
Oh, yeah.
The model! To the model!
So, your grandmother's next. Get ready. This is the culture that we have created for ourselves. And it does, in fact, make a difference. Why Joe Biden, why the Democratic Party are steering directly into a culture war that they are going to lose is absolutely beyond me. The media seem to be of the opinion that if they play the diversity and inclusion game, that if they just pretend that everyone is equally beautiful and equally female, apparently, that somehow they will broaden their audience. What they're actually doing is narrowing their audience because no one believes this stuff. I understand the virtue signaling. I understand that we now live in a universe in which skin in the game, presenting your own fealty to bad ideas is absolutely mandatory. You will be forced to embrace the most extreme aspects of your own ideology. And the more enthusiasm you show for that ideology, the more you will be rewarded by the people who adhere to it. Right? This is why you see students on college campuses embracing Hamas. Because you have to embrace the most crazy manifestation of the thing you are arguing for in order to demonstrate fealty to the ideology. The left is going to do this with everything. You want to demonstrate that you are tolerant and diverse? You have to say that Gayle King is a beautiful young woman like Brooklyn Decker or something. You have to say that Kim Petras, a dude, is actually a beautiful young woman, and you'd have to be a sexist male who hates women in order to not want to have sex with that dude. That is what the left will mandate at this point. It's crazy. It's not good politics, but it is something that is being pursued at the top levels of our elite media institutions, our universities, and of course, in politics as well. Which brings us to the 2024 presidential race. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, most emergencies come without warning. When the next one comes, you're not going to have any seconds to spare. You need to get ready now before the emergency happens. That's just a smart thing to do. Your supplies should be within reach, ready to grab and go at a moment's notice. Secure those supplies at preparewithben.com. If you're unsure how to get started, check out their 4-week emergency food kit. Right now, you get $200 off your 3-month emergency supply. I grew up in California, so you had to prepare for natural disasters like earthquakes. But, now we have to deal with the hurricanes down here in Florida. And that's why my staff, we rely on My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply's 3-month emergency food supply provides delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners that last up to 25 years in storage. You can customize your supply with mega protein kit with real meat or gluten-free options. These kits provide over 2,000 calories every day. They're simple to prepare. You add water and you heat and then you eat. If you order by 3 p.m., your food kit will ship fast, free of charge, and on the same exact day. Invest in your safety and well-being by securing that food storage today. Go to preparewithben.com. Get $200 off your 3-month emergency supply. That's preparewithben.com. Preparewithben.com. So, Joe Biden's campaign spokesperson says they're ready to debate The debate is ready. We talked about this yesterday. Joe Biden put out a video that had to be cut 5 times in 14 seconds to say 51 words in which he challenged Donald Trump to a debate. So here was the Biden campaign spokesman, Michael Tyler, saying, we're ready to debate in June.
Don't have anything to read you out on insofar as any prep. I can say right now that we are ready to debate in June. We are ready to debate in September because the American people deserve to see this. So we are ready to go. We're waiting for proposals, and we will accept them when we have some that fit what we have laid out this morning.
Okay, so one of the things that Joe Biden did here is effectively rig the process. Hey, let's be real about how all of this came about. Joe Biden issued the challenge within like 2 hours. The dates of the debate, the networks upon which they would appear, and the anchors had been named. That doesn't happen that's not how debates are organized, typically speaking. Presidential debates typically take months to negotiate. All the conditions have to be agreed upon by both parties via the Presidential Debate Commission. So they just killed the Presidential Debate Commission. Remember, these are the people who love norms. They love norms. They would never violate norms. If Donald Trump had killed the Presidential Debate Commission, then he would have been a norm violator. But no, Joe Biden did, and it's totally fine. According to Politico, for the president's team, much of the decision stemmed from frustration over how the CPD handled the debates in 2020. In the campaign's letter to the commission Monday, Jen O'Malley Dillon ticked off a number of complaints about its approach, that the scheduled debates would take place too late in the process after early voting is already underway in many states, that its model is antiquated and geared toward huge spectacles rather than good debates, and that the commission was unable or unwilling to enforce the rules during those 2020 debates. So they didn't want to go to a college campus in a random state chosen by the commission. They really, really didn't want the live audience. That was the biggest thing. They really, really did not want the live audience. Also, O'Malley Dillon was whining that the commission failed to enforce the rules in 2020 because Trump flouted his requirement about being tested for COVID or some such nonsense. The real answer here is the reason that they're getting rid of the commission is because Joe Biden does not want RFK Jr. on the stage. That is the real reason that he's doing this. So a few things are happening here. One, Joe Biden pre-rigged this process. He obviously coordinated with CNN. CNN's moderators here are going to be Jake Tapper as well as Dana Bash. Right? Both of them are oriented toward Biden. Right? The amount of scorn that Tapper and Bash have for Donald Trump is obvious. It is clear. It is not, there's really no question as to who they're going to vote for in the upcoming election. That's not a rip on them. That's just a reality. These are both anchors who very much are in Joe Biden's political corner on a personal level. They will say that's just because objectivity requires they be in Joe Biden's corner, but they are, in fact, on the political left. I mean, there's just no question. I'm honest about my own biases, and it irritates me when people are not honest about their own biases. These are both anchors who are going to vote for Joe Biden in the upcoming election. And again, this agreement happened really, really quick. Like Joe Biden announced it, Trump said, okay, and boom, it was ready, which means this was pre-organized. As even Brian Stelter was pointing out, Playbook was pointing this out as well, that this was essentially pre-planned. Again, the idea that they randomly just announced a debate and magically it was ready to go is totally insane. That obviously is completely and utterly untrue, which means that it's effectively rigged. Right? They went right around the presidential commissions and all the networks were ready to play ball. Meanwhile, ABC News' anchors are going to be David Muir and Lindsay Davis. So Donald Trump has now signed on to debates in which all 4 anchors are oriented toward the Democrats. Then, the minute that Donald Trump said, hey, I also accept a debate in October at Fox News with the anchors Brett Baer and Martha McCallum, Joe Biden pushed back and said, why are you trying to game us? Why are you trying to rig this? The projection is just so obvious. So you rig the setup for these 2 debates, like no live crowd, which obviously helps Biden. Live crowd helps Trump because Trump plays to crowd. Trump is, in fact, a comedian. Without a live crowd, his act doesn't work the same way. But the reality here is that the Biden campaign rigged this in advance with other parties. That's what they did. And then the minute that Donald Trump kicked back and said, hey, why don't we do a 3rd debate in October on Fox, a venue that is generally friendlier to Donald Trump, then they're like, nah, no more chaos, no more debate about debates, said Biden campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon. Okay, you never debated. You literally just set the terms. And because Donald Trump had been hectoring Biden to debate, he accepted right away. Now, I will say that Trump's response here is politically not smart. So Donald Trump put up a statement on Truth Social saying, quote, "It is my great honor to accept the CNN debate against crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States and a true threat to our democracy on June 27th. Likewise, I accept the ABC News debate against crooked Joe on September 10th. Thank you, DJT." Okay, so he also made a statement on Truth Social suggesting that Joe Biden was an awful debater. Okay, this is not the way that you do this. The reason you don't do it this way is because if you set the expectations low, it is very easy for those expectations to be surpassed. What Trump should be saying right now, and I would hope he would, is Joe Biden is in fact the president of the United States. I expect him to be a formidable debater, and I also expect to hold him accountable for his terrible record. That would be the way to do this because that sets expectations above breathing. Right now, the expectation, this happens with Joe Biden every single time. He's got the same expectations that I have for like my 11-month-old son. He can barely crawl, he drools a lot, and he's alive. And poops his diaper. Those are the expectations for Joe Biden. So if he doesn't do like one of those things, if he walks instead of crawls, if he drools only a little bit instead of a lot, if he continues to, if he craps his diaper only once or twice on stage and inaudibly, then he'll be totally fine. Setting the expectations too low is a dangerous game. There's something else going on here. The other thing that's going on here is the attempt by the Biden team to bar RFK Jr. They do not want RFK Jr. on the stage. We'll get to that in just one moment. First, let's talk about Responsible Man. It's our first true joint venture with our good friends over at Legacy Box, one of the Daily Wire's first advertising partners. Co-founders Nick and Adam came to us with the idea of bringing a world-class men's lifestyle company to the market. Something premium, something that speaks to mind and body. I'm talking here about Responsible Man. It's a men's vitamin and supplement brand that isn't just for the gym bros, but for every dude on a journey to be his best as a husband, as a dad, as a citizen. The Emerson multivitamin may be the finest men's multivitamin on the market. The problem is your modern diet, it's often deficient in those key vitamins and minerals, as we all know, leaving you weakened and diminished and unable to reach your full potential. The solution is, in fact, the Emerson multivitamin. It's a physician-formulated, robust supplement made up of 33 key premium ingredients that helps fill nutrient gaps to support your immune system, maintain energy production, sharpen brain cognition, and support the health of your heart and muscles. Emerson comes in an exceptional matte black aluminum tin. The manly green vitamin capsules are smooth, easy to take, and the best part, they're mint essenced for a great smell and taste. The woke left likes to celebrate when it sees men fail. Well, with wokeness causing chaos and uncertainty, it's crucial you take charge of your life. It starts with the Emerson multivitamin, a simple daily discipline to make the most of yourself, live up to responsibilities, and exceed the expectations of others. Visit responsibleman.com, save 30% on your subscription to the Emerson multivitamin with this exclusive launch sale. Still in stock, ships immediately when you purchase at responsibleman.com. Limited number available. Take advantage of the launch deal, save 30%. That's responsibleman.com to take responsibility today. Okay, meanwhile, now, again, one of the big problems here for Joe Biden, the reason that he decided to avoid the Presidential Debate Commission and basically kill it outright, is because he didn't want them mandating that RFK Jr. be on the stage. The reality is that RFK Jr. provides an alternative to Joe Biden. I know there's been a lot of controversy over whether RFK Jr. is going to draw votes from the Trump camp. The answer is he probably will not. The reason that he probably will not, he's overtly pro-choice all the way up to birth. That is a non-starter for a huge number of Republicans. In the past, he's had a mixed record on things like gun control, obviously. When it comes to social policy, RFK Jr. is a mixed bag. When it comes to tax policy, he is a mixed bag. When it comes to foreign policy, he tends to fall on the more isolationist side of the scale. And he's not a peace through strength guy in the same way that Donald Trump has historically been. There are a lot of distinctions between Donald Trump and RFK Jr., which, of course, I mean, listen, cards on the table. I've been obvious about this. I support Donald Trump for the presidency. I've had RFK Jr. on the Sunday special. I think he's a super nice guy. I think he's a really interesting person. He's going to draw from Democrats. He's going to draw from Democrats because Joe Biden is a terrible president. And any alternative to Joe Biden who is not named Donald Trump gives Biden voters an off-ramp to feel like they can vote against Biden without voting for the guy they despise most in Donald Trump, which is why Joe Biden needs to minimize RFK Jr.'s presence in the race. RFK Jr. came out, he said, like, guys, why am I excluded from this? He says Presidents Trump and Biden are colluding to lock America into a head-to-head matchup that 70% say they do not want. They're trying to exclude me from their debate because they're afraid I would win. Keeping viable candidates off the debate stage undermines democracy. 43% of Americans identify as independents. If Americans are ever going to escape the hammerlock of the two-party system, now is the time to do it. These are the two most unpopular candidates in living memory. By excluding me from the stage, Presidents Biden and Trump seek to avoid discussion of their 8 years of mutual failure, including deficits, wars, lockdowns, chronic disease, and inflation. Okay, so RFK Jr. is perceived by both sides as a threat. The reality is that he really is only a threat to Biden because, again, Donald Trump supporters are enthusiastic to vote for Trump. Biden supporters are enthusiastic to vote against Donald Trump, but not for Joe Biden. So if there's a third way, they might take it. That's what the polling is showing right now. Trump, for his part, says crooked Joe Biden does not want RFK Jr. in the debates because Jr. is far left of him, and they would be debating over the same territory, like ridiculous open borders and the Green New Scam, both of which are killing our country. He's also sharper and far more intelligent than Joe, all making for a bad combination of ingredients. I don't care if Junios joins the debate, but right now his polling numbers are very low. He's not properly qualified in the states. He seems to be on a downward path. Jr. needs more than his name to get on the stage. Now, frankly, I think that Donald Trump should encourage RFK Jr. to be on the stage. Just tactically speaking, I think that it is better for Trump to have Kennedy on the stage providing a contrast to Biden than not to have him on the stage at all. In a binary, Joe Biden's entire strategy in this debate is binary choice between me and Trump. Look at the wild orange Hulk over here. That's literally his strategy. His strategy is going to be to point to Donald Trump and go, that's democracy, January, election denial. And then he's going to wait for Trump to be like, it's so true. Everything's terrible. We won the election in January. That's the debate that Joe Biden desperately wants. Now, there are two ways out of that for Donald Trump. Way number one is for Donald Trump to be disciplined. Now, people forget this, but in the last couple of debates against Joe Biden, he was significantly more disciplined than he was in the first debate. Donald Trump's debate needs to be, we can always talk about January 6th. Happy to talk about it, but he's a terrible president. Everyone knows it. He's terrible. Nothing is better than when I left office. That is, if he runs a disciplined debate, he'll destroy Biden. He'll destroy him. And he needs to let Biden talk. He shouldn't try to interrupt Biden. Biden cannot hold it together for longer than 30 seconds. You're going to get a lot of Joe Biden saying, I want to talk about that, but I guess I'll get to that. My time's expired. Oh, okay. Just let Joe Biden be Joe Biden would be the recommendation to Trump. That's path number one. Path number two, which is helpful to Donald Trump, is get RFK Jr. on the stage. RFK Jr. will attack Joe Biden with alacrity from the center. And the number of votes that drop off from Trump to RFK Jr. is going to be a lot lower than the number of votes that drop off from Joe Biden to RFK Jr. For sure. I mean, by the way, I see this all the time in sort of the liberal Jewish community. Obviously, pretty clear. I'm in the Jewish community. I'm very, very Jewish. And many of the people that I know who are liberal Jews are still, for reasons that I find non-compelling, resistant to Donald Trump, but they really don't want to vote for Biden. And so what I've been telling them is, okay, stay home or vote for RFK. RFK is very pro-Israel. If that's your issue and you care that much about it, do not give your vote to Joe. There's a reason Biden wants RFK Jr. off the stage. I would suggest that that's actually the number one reason why he's avoiding the Presidential Debate Commission. And let's be real about this. RFK Jr. is, by the polling data, polling better than any third-party candidate since Ross Perot in 1996. The latest Fox News poll has him at 11% nationally, compared to 43 for Trump and 40 for Biden. The latest INI CIPP poll has him at 12%, compared to 39 for Biden, 38 for Trump. If you go back just a couple of weeks, the CNN poll has him at 16, so does Quinnipiac. The idea that RFK Jr. should be excluded from the stage seems to me a signal error in judgment. I'm very much in favor of RFK Jr., obviously, being on the stage to provide a contrast. And meanwhile, Democrats still, they're having a little bit of heartburn over this. Nancy Pelosi, for her part, says, I'd never recommend going on stage with Donald Trump.
I myself would never recommend going on a stage with Donald Trump, but the president has decided that's what he wants to do. I think the format he is suggesting is a good one.
Okay, so, yeah, again, she likes the format, which is why Joe Biden picked to do it this way, so that he could set the format in advance. Honestly, the media are nervous about this, but they're going to try and play this as though it's an epic Biden win for even agreeing to the debate. That's what MSNBC's Nicole Wallace is doing.
Epic troll. Hi again, everybody. It's 5 o'clock in New York and what is already shaping up to be an unconventional presidential debate season. So this morning, that video was released by President Joe Biden. You can see for yourself, he came out swinging this trolling of Donald Trump, saying, here, you're free on Wednesdays. He challenged Trump to 2 presidential debates while teasing him a bit about his current state as a criminal defendant.
Epic troll. Epic troll. He's running for the presidency and he's losing. So good luck with your epic troll right there. We'll get to more on that in a moment. First, far too many people are unproductive and unfulfilled in their jobs. A lot of teams fail to maximize productivity and achieve those great results. That's why Patrick Lencioni author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, created Working Genius. This 10-minute assessment is revolutionizing the way managers and leaders think about teamwork and productivity. For individuals, Working Genius is the simplest and fastest way to discover your gifts and better understand the type of work on which you thrive. It provides detailed insights into your areas of genius along with an easy-to-apply report that'll help you leverage this information in your work and life. For teams, Working Genius helps maximize productivity and fulfillment. Ask everybody on your team to take the assessment, generate a custom team map to reveal strengths and potential weaknesses. You'll be amazed at the results. It'll quickly help you understand where and why your team gets stuck and how to leverage one another to achieve more together. The 6 types of Working Genius have been used by nearly 1 million people since launch in 2020. It's quickly becoming the tool of choice for teams and organizations that want to maximize their productivity, fulfillment, and results. The tool is being leveraged in pretty much every industry imaginable, from startups and nonprofits to Fortune 40 companies. We've even used the tool at Daily Wire. We've seen that it can work firsthand. Now you can get it too with my special discount. Go to workinggenius.com. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 20% off the $25 assessment. That's workinggenius.com, promo code Shapiro. Meanwhile, the Biden administration continues to just be terrible at its job, and this is the running theme for Joe Biden. Debates ain't going to save him if he's really, really bad at his job. I know that the media are trying to spin this as a win for Biden. If he has to defend his record, it's going to be a disaster for him. He is hoping the moderators save him. It's why he pre-scheduled this with CNN and ABC. He is hoping the moderators direct all fire at Donald Trump. It's going to be Donald Trump's job to redirect all that fire at Joe Biden on the issues, because Joe Biden does not have a defense on the issues. When Donald Trump says October 7th would not have happened on my watch, he is right. When Donald Trump says Ukraine would not have happened on my watch, I know because I was there and it didn't, he is right. When Donald Trump says you would have not had 40-year highs in inflation on my watch, he is right. That is all he has to say. If that's literally the whole debate, it's a giant fail for Joe Biden. All it takes is a little bit of discipline. On the actual news front, Joe Biden continues to split his own party on Israel. He's in a real pickle here because instead of taking a strong and consistent position, he has vacillated wildly between the radical left and the moderate left. And so what the polls are showing is that Democrats are basically evenly divided right now on whether they think Biden is doing a good job or a bad job on that particular issue. Those are bad numbers for Joe Biden. He is hoping that he will be bailed out by a combination of media pressure on Israel and internal pressure inside the Israeli government. The big story coming out of Israel today is that Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who's been at odds with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for legitimately like a year and a half at this point. Netanyahu tried to fire him maybe a year ago, and then there were big protests in the streets, and then he unfired him. Well, Gallant now is mirroring the Joe Biden position. One of the things that's been happening in Israeli politics is in an attempt to sort of play a weird shadow game with Joe Biden, there are certain politicians in Israel who've been attempting to mirror Biden's positions in the hope that Biden will then support them for the ouster of Netanyahu. That's obviously been happening with Yoav Gallant. So Yoav Gallant came out yesterday and he said, I need a transition plan for Gaza right now. Now, listen, everyone in Israel knows, the population, the politicians, everyone knows there is no transition plan because there's no one to transition to. Everyone knows this because the following conditions obtain in the Gaza Strip. 1, the population is deeply radicalized and supports Hamas and other terrorist groups. 2, the Palestinian Authority is weak in the West Bank, so weak they cannot even control it. Extending that weakness to the Gaza Strip would not amount to the PA keeping down Hamas. It would amount to the PA being hijacked by Hamas, which now the administration is openly leaking. They're now saying that Hamas will actually pick the people in the PA to run the Gaza Strip. So denazification through Nazification would be the goal there. So that's unworkable. 3, there's been a proposal to bring in the UAE, Morocco, Egypt to somehow police the Gaza Strip. All 3 of those countries say they do not want to be seen by their own populations as tools of the Americans and the Israelis, which means they would end up turning over that leadership, presumably, to many of the same people, to Hamas again, to people who sympathize with Hamas again. And in fact, they're making that clear. They're actually putting the roadblock in play. They say that unless Israel commits to a Palestinian state, they will not get involved, which of course is a catch-22 for Israel, because the minute you commit to a quote-unquote Palestinian state with no actual government, you have now given larger discretion for terrorists, and you have incentivized more terrorism, because what it means is kill 1,200 Jews on October 7th and take 250 hostage, including hostages right now in tunnels, and we'll give you a state. So they've created all these roadblocks. It's a massive catch-22. And when it comes to Israeli military rule, which is really the only option, because let's be real, the reason Israel is back in Gaza is to assure Israeli security. If Israel cannot assure its own security through any of the alternative options, that's the only option on the table. As I've just spelled out, none of the other options are available. no one can name an option. So when Yoav Gallant comes out and he says, there has to be an option other than Israeli military control, everyone is all ears here, dude. The only reason he's saying this is presumably to mirror Joe Biden's positions on these issues. Now, there are a couple reasons why Gallant might be doing that. One is that he's attempting to play nice with the Biden administration so as to get the arms embargo on Israel potentially removed. That it's a political ploy by Gallant or by Benny Gantz. That is the nicer theory. The less nice theory is that Gallant and Gantz are being cultivated by Joe Biden in order to take over the government in Israel from Netanyahu. That theory is supported by the fact that the Biden administration pretty clearly hates Netanyahu and actually deployed the Senate Majority Leader to attack the elected leader of Israel in a time of war. So they're propping up Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine, but they're attacking Netanyahu in Israel. Right? That is the goal. And so what they're actually looking for is what's called a constructive vote of no confidence, which would mean without new elections, supplanting Netanyahu in Israel with Gantz and Gallant. The only way to do that, presumably because of the current Knesset structure, is Gallant, who's a member of the same party as Netanyahu. Gallant would have to carve off a certain segment of Likud seats. They would have to come with him, and they would then have to vote for a new government led by Benny Gantz. In order to make that happen, the opposition parties right now, even if supported from outside by the Arab parties, they have like 56 seats. So you need at least 5 members of Likud to come over with Gallant in order to form a new coalition government. That's the more cynical theory. It's been put forth by good commentators in Israel like Carolyn Glick. Here was Gallant yesterday attacking his own sitting prime minister with a nonsensical statement that calls for not Israeli control of the Gaza Strip, but literally an alternative. He said, I urge Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make the decision that Israel will not impose civilian rule on the Gaza Strip, that there will be no Israel military administration in the Gaza Strip, and that we will work on an immediate plan for new ruling alternatives for Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Our duty and our responsibility is to lead our country to a better place. This very moment, it's our turn for the future of the nation, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so there's one problem. There's no one to transition to. The only reason they're doing this is to mirror Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a weak leader. He's a bad leader. And so members of the Israeli government are now trying to mirror him in either hopes of wheedling him into supporting Israel more broadly, given the fact that they're currently being attacked from the north as well by Hezbollah, or in an attempt to supplant Netanyahu and then wheedle more support from Joe Biden. For his part, Netanyahu is actually mirroring the Israeli public right now when he says, what in the world are you talking about, a two-state solution? Literally every governing party in the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, Islamic Jihad, Hamas, these are all terrorist groups who wish to murder Jews and destroy the state of Israel. This is nuts.
The two-state solution that people talk about is basically would be the greatest reward for the terrorist that you can imagine. 80% of Palestinians in Gaza and in Judea Samaria, in the West Bank, support the savagery. Giving them a state would do two things. One, it would be a tremendous reward, a historic precedent of giving those people who committed the worst massacre against the Jewish people since the Holocaust on a single day, giving them a prize. And second, it would be a state that would be immediately taken over by Hamas and Iran, and it wouldn't advance the purposes of peace. It would just be a launching ground for a future war against Israel.
That, of course, is exactly right. Now, it's worthwhile noting at this point, there's so much propaganda online about this war. A lot of it is connected to China, apparently. According to the Jerusalem Post, key radical left-wing organizations in the post-October 7th anti-Israel protest movement are funded by or connected to a Chinese Communist Party-linked network, according to a Network Contagion Research Institute report. 3 conveners of the Shut It Down for Palestine Coalition, Answer Coalition, the People's Forum, and the International People's Assembly are linked by a complicated web of financial, personal, personnel, and ideological ties to CCP associates. This, of course, is not a shock. We've known this since November, that China, Iran, Russia have been promoting the interests of Hamas in this war, particularly online, and open networks have been a great way for them to promote their propaganda. It's one of the reasons why a weird echo chamber is formed around Joe Biden so he pursues bad policy. Bottom line here, however, is that no good policy is emerging from this administration. Name the good policy that has emerged from this administration. You can't because it don't exist. That's what Donald Trump is going to have to focus on come the debates. Already coming up, we'll be joined by Candace Cameron Bure. You first knew her as DJ Turner on Full House. She's joining us today to talk about her career and her new film, Unsung Hero. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.